What a beautiful anime. That's just the one thing that I want to really say at the beginning. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb Initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is a show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week I'll be talking about the first season of Sangatsu no Lion, or March Comes Like a Lion, Season 1. Before I start, some disclaimers. Spoiler alert, I'll be talking about most of the things that happened in this season, even though I will not be giving many details, given that this is one of those cases that the journey is way more important than the actual goal. So for that reason, I don't think that spoilers do end up kind of like spoiling the fun. But either way, spoiler alert, I'll be talking about everything that happens. There's no real plot twist, but even then, outside of that, I have the disclaimer that this is only the first season. I'll be talking only about the anime. I did not read the manga as of yet. I frankly don't know if I will, given that there is still the second season, and the second season, from what I can research, covers the whole of the source material. So for that matter, I may only stay on the anime. Also to that effect, with that being said, let's get to the stats. So Sangatsu no Lion is originally a manga written by Umino Chika, published from July 2007 until today, from what I can gather, and it has already official translation for the West. I think already it's on the 20 volume mark, if I'm not mistaken. Then there is a small spin-off, Sangatsu no Lion Showa Ibun Shakunetsu no Toki, that ran from April 2015 to March 2020 with 10 volumes. And then we have the anime that has a total of 44 episodes split in 2 seasons. So we're talking about the first 22 here, the first season that ran originally from October 2016 to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, March 2017, and then the next season went from December 2017 to March 2018. The anime, as I already said, has 44 episodes in total, no specials, no OVAs, and the studio that worked on it is Shaft, also known as the guys who did Madoka, the Monogatari series, Megakushi Actors, Nisekoi, and so on and so forth. This is something that I will talk a bit about a bit later, but even then. Then we have the live action movie from 2017. Now, how do I actually review something which, for the most part, is incomplete, right? So I only have the first season to talk about here, and in real, let's say, real actual terms, I don't think that I can really encapsulate everything that does happen in this season, because it is not really the events of the season that really like shape the whole thing. I think it's a more character focused anime or story in that sense, so it puts the importance of the characters first rather than the actual events that are happening in the story, even though obviously there are like landmark parts and so on and so forth. But Sangatsu no Lion, I think, and this is one of those reviews which I will like talk a whole lot about, like abstract concepts and stuff. So if you don't like that kind of thing, I can already tell you may not like really this anime. But starting from the very beginning, so being really like concise and everything, first and foremost, this is sports anime about shogi. Shogi, for those who don't know, and me, about what I'm about to say is going to trigger some people. I know it, because most of them don't want them to be like compared, but shogi, for all intents and purposes, is mechanically similar to chess, but the setup, the amount of pieces, the way they move and everything else is a whole lot different, so much so that when you watch the anime and kind of have a bit of an idea of how let's say, high level chess is played, you see that there are some concepts that don't translate well, but I'll maybe talk about this a bit later. So for starters, so let's get from the very beginning. Our main character is Kiriyama Rei. He's a professional shogi player. He's still 17 years old, so he's like in that age of ballpark of high school. So for instance, from the very beginning we get a bit of a backstory on everything that happened to him, and we get this very good picture of his situation, because he, at the point of the story which we get in, he's trying to reconcile his choices in life, and this is due to a whole lot of circumstances that are revealed drip feed to us throughout the whole season. But for the most part, the beginning of the season is, and me saying the beginning, I think it's like the first 5 episodes or so, everything is pretty well established from the get-go. So Ray currently lives alone on a really nice and well placed, well located apartment on, I think this is completely like made up, but it is good for the background and the world building and stuff. So apparently near Tokyo, and I don't really know if this is real or not, I'm assuming it's not, but even then, so near Tokyo there are these like artificial islands which are named after each of the months. So he's living on the March Island, Sangatsu Island, right front and center to the main river of the city. It's a really beautiful kind of scenery, and you can see from the very beginning of the series the beauty of it all, and so on and so forth. I'll be talking about the art a bit later, but still. So he's living alone. He does only 2 things. He trains for shogi matches and studies for school for the most part, though he does have to skip school because, and this is something that doesn't actually translate well to the Western way of kind of school system and stuff, but due to the fact that he's a professional shogi player, he kind of needs to skip school, and he doesn't actually get in trouble because of it, because he has matches, and shogi matches, this is like from the get-go we get this idea that the shogi matches takes kind of the whole day, like 8 full hours of playing, and so for that reason he does not regularly go to school. That this ends up being that he does not have any friends at school, and so on and so forth, and he plays and stuff, and this all comes forward to be the fact that the very beginning of the series, it is set up that he is lonely. He struggles with his loneliness, and I would like to say that he is going through depression from the get-go at the start of the series, though some people may say that this I don't like to diagnose this kind of stuff. So let's just say he's lonely, he's living with his own struggles, and for that reason he from time to time he will have a crash out alone at home, and so on and so forth. Though, and this is something that gives, I would not say a juxtaposition to the whole like presentation, but it is a breath of fresh air, a brief respite for his life in general, and especially at the beginning it is really well set up like this. But for whatever reason, he has he got to know these 3 sisters who live on, I think it's the Shigatsu Island, the April Island, if I'm not mistaken. Akari, Hinata, and Momo, and they live, the 3 of them, with their grandfather. Their grandfather runs a wagashi shop, a traditional Japanese sweets shop, and besides that, Akari has a side job as a hostess on a club, and Hinata and Momo are only on school age. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Hinata is middle school, kind of late middle school age, and Momo is really, really small, so she's kindergarten kind of stuff. And this is the first part where the anime actually shows how human interaction is something that Rei not only he craves for, but it's something that saves him from himself and his own like internal demons and stuff. Because for the first episode, I think, for the first few minutes that we are with him, we can see a lack of color and really, it's really depressing at the beginning. The whole anime has this really like dingy, lousy kind of feel to it at the beginning, because I mean, this is to represent his view of the world, and whenever the sisters enter in frame, and especially I think it has two very specific moments in the whole of the 22 episodes. First one, I think it's at the beginning, because it is a complete 180 from one moment when we see Ray in his apartment alone, lights out, really monotone scene, really quiet, nothing happens. There is this kind of eerie feeling around the whole room and stuff. And when he goes to the sister's home to eat with them, everything changes. The house itself is way more colorful than Ray's building. There is a whole lot of noise, and in the anime I say noise, but it is a whole lot of liveliness, let's say, from the cats running about to maybe Momo doing something, and then the banter between Hinata and Akari, and the whole thing kind of goes from there. The whole scene kind of changes whenever he entered the sister's house, and this is something that goes on throughout the whole season, so much so that eventually, and this is already going through the, let's say, first 11 episodes, but throughout, I think the first 11 episodes, the anime sets up that Rei is someone who lives alone, is lonely, and he lives with the consequences of his action and choices, and I will get there when we get there, but in doing so, he isolates himself and ends up kind of being consumed by his own problems. And whenever he has these few moments where he goes to the sisters' homes, like to eat with them, to talk with them, there's one episode which is so fucking cute, where Akari basically asks him as a favor to grab Momo from the kindergarten and take her home. Oh, it's so cute. It's so cute. And the whole thing kind of goes from there. So the whole interaction, the whole of the, say, the beginning of the end of it is whenever the sisters are involved, whenever there is color in his life, he has these moments of respite, because he can kind of forget his problems and actually have a good night's sleep. And this is something that at the very beginning, it's something that is recurring, where he does really sleep a lot when he goes there after eating. In part also because it translates to he does not feel comfortable at his own home, and so for that matter, his refuge is their house basically. And not only that, but also going from there, right, talking about a bit of a day's past, and it is a really, like, I will not say weird, but the circumstance is really kind of out there. I'm not saying that I doubt someone has gone through something similar, or that something like this may not happen, but it is a real build up, real, like, they really had to set this up really well to actually work in terms of narrative, because there is backstory, and this is something that feels really heavy, and part of why his choices feel so heavy throughout the whole anime is because of this. But Rei's story is basically that he used to live with his parents and his younger sister, learned shogi at a young age, and through that had a connection with his father and with one of the college colleague of his college friends of his father's that was already inside of the Shogi Federation, so he was already kind of a professional. And due to an accident, every single one of these family members passes away in a car accident. And in a moment of, and this is the crux of that one specific scene that I'm talking about in the funeral, in a moment of, I will not say opportunism, I don't see it as such, I think it's up for interpretation of the reader on whether or not it was opportunist, whether or not it was right or was wrong. I'm not the one to actually give judgment for that. But talking with this friend of his father, he asks Rei if he likes Shogi, and Rei responds that he does, and due to that he does take Rei as an adopted child of sorts, while already having 2 children, a girl older than Rei and a boy younger. The boy I will not remember the name of, the girl comes important a bit later, but either way. And the thing and the relation that builds up is that Rei shows a lot of talent in Shogi and stuff, and we see this really, and I will not say like it's something common, but it is something that everybody has heard of, that being a professional Shogi player, their father kind of measures everything in Shogi matter, let's say. So he does take his children to become shogi players and stuff, and this may be, let's say, this may be not like conscious of him, but it becomes really clear for us audience that he does measure each of his children, now the third one, by their shogi talent. So the first one to be let go basically is the younger brother, who basically drops out because he doesn't really feel confident on anything and stuff. And then after some time, and this is the build-up of everything, both Rei and the older sister Kyoko become part of the Shogi Federation and start playing actual matches and stuff. But at some point, Rei develops a lot more, and through a mixture of, let's say, favoritism because of the father and raw talent, Kyoko has a falling off with both Rei and her father, and eventually becomes enters the rebellious phase really early, and stays like that for a long time. It is implied, I think, that she's probably 3 to 4 years older than Rei, so at the beginning of the anime, if Rei is 17, she's like 21 or something like that. This comes today because at this point he has he is aware of his position and what he has done basically to this family, because more or less destroyed this, or at the very least this is the way that he perceives himself as, and he chooses to then go full out professional and live alone outside of the home, so that his influence can no longer destroy more of the family that he already did. And this is the struggle, right? So he lives alone because of his own choices, and he has to play shogi. He's attached to the game, want him or not, because he doesn't want to go back to the original, to the first situation that he was on. And this evolves throughout the whole series. Now talking about a bit about Kyoko, because Kyoko, I think it's the one, like a tether that keeps on tying Rei throughout the whole season, and this is something that I think that is mentioned a lot, and not really mentioned but is implicit, that whenever Rei kind of gets a boost of confidence and can actually live his life like it should, so he can kind of balance his schoolwork with his matches and so on and so forth, training and stuff, Kyoko appears, says, and I don't have the proper vocabulary to say this, I don't think I do at the very least, but the way Kyoko says things, and shout out to the voice actress, Marina, also known as Toka from TWI, and oh my god, a whole lot more characters. She has this way to, I'll try to be really simple on this, but basically she cannot for the life of her say anything good about anything unless it's a backhanded compliment, which in turn then asks the viewer to kind of check if that's sarcasm or if it's genuine, and you can never really know about it. Not only that, but later on in the season it is kind of implied that she holds a bit of influence towards Rei, because they imply that there was at the very least an inkling of a romantic sentiment between the two at some point, which then traces back to the fact that they are like adoptive brother and sister, so it's kind of fucked up in that way. But either or, the crux of the matter is that she is a recurring character that happens to appear sometimes. The first 2 times is really terrible interaction, really horrid, and towards the later half of the anime, she does appear, she does her whole stick and stuff, but she kind of, it's a bit of because of circumstance, but also because of the development that Rei has gone through throughout the whole of the season. But she has a more emotional side to her, and she shows it off to him alone, but at the same time it's not something that she taps into much. So whenever you see her outside, she's there's this one scene where the sisters interact with Kyoko for like really brief period, and Momo just says that she's a witch, and for that reason she's a witch, and basically that's it for Kyoko. I think that, and here I'm trying to kind of dissect a bit of the characters for the most important ones at release. But again, and this is the thing here, I cannot like give good examples of everything here, because otherwise I would be kind of trying to abridge every one of the episodes, and that's no good. So please, if you can, if you're willing, please watch this anime. It's beautiful, the story is amazing, it's, oh my god, it's really nice. With that said, I think there are like 2 characters still that I want to kind of touch on. There is Nikaido, who at the very start is the annoying friend that Rei has because of a whole lot of things that happened in their childhood, but eventually he kind of deems himself to be the rival, and then the whole thing goes from there. He's not a bad person, but he's annoying for the most part. Also, oh my god, never mind. The thing is, the interactions with Nikaido are either you're going to like it because it's funny, or you're gonna hate. I personally think he's annoying for the most part, but sometimes it pays off. And then there is at the end of the season, there is Shimada-san, who at the very end of the season, when Rei hits a wall and kind of goes into the first arc low point, I would say, he needs a mentor, and for that reason he kind of chooses Shimada-san, who is an older, more experienced, more advanced player in their club, and for that reason he comes to be part of his workshop. He starts studying under and stuff. Basically, and this is already kind of trying to wrap up the story of this whole season. The season ends remarkably, not with a rush, but really, I would say, with an invitation. It's a really sappy kind of final note, I would say, but it is kind of wholesome in that sense. But basically, it's an invitation for the viewer to actually go there and watch the second season. I think it's a really well-intentioned kind of thing to do, and I think they did a really great job on everything. So there's that, and for the most part, the story is that. So it's a story about people, it's a story about family, it's a story about Shogi, it's a story about a lot of stuff, and the different human interactions that happen, and the little things and random stuff that just appears, and combined with the art style, the ideas that the guys who direct this had, the guys who made this had, the whole thing kind of goes through a whole journey in and of itself. I didn't mention the situation with the sisters of why do they live with their grandfather, not with their parents, because there is a whole nother thing there. The whole thing about Nikaido and his view on why he chose to be friends with Rei, and so on and so forth. It's a really interesting, well-written, character-driven story. I called it a sports anime at the beginning, but if I'm being real, I think this is one of the best, and I said this about Kobayashi-san and stuff, but this is, I think, the other side of the slice of life kind of anime, because this is not Kobayashi-san where they try to face issues with comedy or with things being cute. This is a more kind of I would say brutalist. Is a more it's not realistic, but it is a more front-facing drama, more drama-driven, let's say, more drama-centered slice of life. Because whenever there is something sad, there's something sad, and that's about it. There is a good spite. There are good characters, and this is the thing, right? So especially the sisters that help Rei a lot, they are truly great people. They're truly kind and great, and there is this whole thing about family warmth and living with everyone together and stuff. And even though they don't actually like explicitly say that Rei is welcome to kind of join their family, they kind of implicate that, and Rei understanding that he wants to still keep some kind of distance between them. And in that sense, it is such a well-written thing. Oh my god, one of the highlights, and I think that it is the second moment where you can actually see how the sisters change. Rei's view on life is one of the moments after he really hit the wall. He loses one of his important matches because he subestimated one of his opponents. He goes through a whole lot of stuff. He comes down with the flu, a fever, something like that. Goes down the weather much worse than I am. But anyways, he goes through a feverish dream for like 2-3 days without eating anything, and then at one point after some time someone rings his bell, and when he goes up to open it in a really dark, again monotone room, when he opens, there are Momo and Hinata, and behind them you can see just that really huge blue sky. And when they enter his room, you can see that progressively the cuts and the scenes of the background become even more colored, and I just think it's beautiful. What they did with this anime is truly beautiful. Now I need to take my time to actually talk about the art. So when I started watching this, and this is a thing, I don't actually remember the name of the first opening, sorry, but the first opening of this anime is really amazing. It's truly amazing. The second one I didn't actually like get much out of it because I think the first one hit that much harder, though I'm not saying that it is a bad song, but still the first opening bangs. And the thing about the art, right? So from the very beginning you can see that these animes made with an artist's intention. The guys just came down and said, okay, so we are going to put all of what we have into this project. We will draw what we need to draw by hand, by whatever, at depth, digital arts, whatever. It is truly beautiful. From the river that is located in front of Rei's window to each of the passages of the city, even the little things, the things on the train, things on the way they move the shogi pieces in the board, the animations, oh my god, it's really incredible. Shout out specifically to, there is this one part where Nikaido gets a book to teach the sisters how to play shogi, and they chose to illustrate that in the anime with some of the and I would say this was kind of artistic intention. It's one of the worst in terms of nowadays 3D animations that you could ever get. It is like PS2 levels of animations, because oh my god, so like he teaches like each of the pieces is a cat with a weapon and kind of, let's say, feudal medieval kind of setting, medieval Japan kind of attire and stuff, and it is really funny. And at some point they have this 3D animation which is horrible, but at the same time I was sitting there seeing that, I was like, holy shit, what am I watching? This is incredible, like, oh my god. Because, and this is the thing, right? So the anime is already beautiful, in a lot of times they do employ really different, really specific art styles and technique, but when they do something silly like that, it becomes silly and it becomes funny, and I appreciate that. It is really interesting to see that. one of the things that I want to say, I don't know if everyone's at the studio is responsible for the single project, but the art in this is most comparable to Madoka, specifically because it is like really a calling card, I would say. The way they draw the eyes, the expressions and stuff. One of the things that doesn't really sit right with me specifically is the mouths, because they seem a bit way too much emotional, I would say, or maybe at some point they don't really show, I think, the emotion that they should, but that's a minor nitpick in a really like nearly, or if I would say, a perfect anime. So there's that. I already talked about the music, animation together with art and presentation. It is 10 out of 10. This anime, I really like this anime. I really want to watch the second season. So next week, next episode, second season review, and then from there we see what we get. And with that being said, thank you guys for listening, thank you guys for watching. Please like, please share, please follow, depending on the platform you're in, and I hope to stick around for next time. Bye.